1989, Leakey sought to distance himself from his original theory, insisting any attempt at a specific reconstruction of the human lineage were premature. He now stresses instead the diversity of coexisting early hominids, the great age of big-brained forms, and the need for finding more fossils. He says that we need just simply more fossils before we get into these things. And finally, I wrote this part. The modern human is said to live not earlier than 100,000 years ago. Us, just 100,000 years ago. While Homo erectus' skull has been found in Java Island in Indonesia 27,000 years ago. This suggests that Homo erectus have lived just about the same time as the modern man and cannot be his ancestor. The most surprising discovery was found in the cave of Granadellino, Spain. Belonged to the face of an 11-year-old boy dating 800,000 years ago. Much older than previously thought. Another finding was a stone hut dating 1.7 million years ago. And we were thinking it came about 100,000 years ago. 1.7 million years ago. A structure similar to some places found in Africa today. This shows modern man was living at the same time as Homo erectus and Homo habilis. The strangest finding yet was the footprint of a modern man dating 3.6 million years ago, which is the time of the Australopithecines. And that is conclusive that this one species vanishing and giving rise to another species is not correct. It's like, sure, hydrogen, four of the hydrogen, they come down together and they make helium. But it doesn't mean that the hydrogen will disappear and there won't be hydrogen. Sure, the combination of hydrogen makes helium. A combination of the element, they make molecules. But the new form does not vanish and dismiss the previous forms. So, this is number one. The big major objection to the theory of the evolution that we have right now is the natural selection. According to the new Darwinism, natural selection is the directions of the evolutionary changes which act spontaneously and not by pure chance. Therefore, it says that according to the new Darwinism, natural selection is the direction of the evolutionary changes which act spontaneously and by pure chance. It's random. Things are happening. There's no planning, pre-planning, designing, none of that. Selection, natural selection, so this is randomly by chance thing comes about. Therefore, we have to understand the word selection is not indicative of any selector or any intelligent designer. That's what they're stressing on. That this idea has been challenged vehemently by creationists. The anti-evolutionary groups set their argument by demonstrating the extreme complexity and the procedure in the cell structure and DNA molecule. I'm going to read a few of these quotations, which really shows the complexity of the biological structure. One of them is in the page 106, 107 of this Evolution Deceits of Mr. Harun Yahya is quoting from somebody. He says, the sequential order of the letter in the DNA determines the structure of a human being down to its slightest details. In addition to features like height, eye, hair, and skin colors, DNA of a single cell contains the design of 206 bones, 600 muscles, a network of 10,000 auditory muscles, a network of 2 million optic nerves, 100 billion nerve cells, 130 billion meter long veins, and 100 trillion cells in the body. If we were to write down the information coded in the DNA, then we would mean to compile a giant library consisting 900 volumes of encyclopedias of 500 pages each. This incredibly voluminous information is encoded in the component of DNA called genes. That much complicated is the natural structures, the biological structures. So they say, how can such a thing just happens without pre-planning, just by chance, just coming randomly? The human cell itself contains 64 chromosomes and 50 to 100,000 genes and 200,000 protein. The Russian evolutionist Alexander Oparin, in his book, The Origin of Life, says, unfortunately, the origin of the cell remains a question which is actually the darkest point of the complete evolutionary theory. Professor Klaus Dawes, the president of the Institute of the Biochemistry at the University of Johannes Gutenberg, states, quotations, more than 30 years of experimentations on the origin of life in the field of the chemical and molecular evolution have led to better perceptions of the immensity of the problem of the origin of life on Earth, rather than to its solution. At the present, all discussions on principles, theories, and experiments in the field either end in a statement or in a confession of ignorance. He says that much we are dumbfounded when we look at this structure. One of the English mathematicians, Sir Fred Hoyle, the English mathematician, says that if you're telling him that a structure like a cell can just be made on its own by chance, he's resembling, this is quote, resembling it to this is just giving an example in this way, quote, a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the material therein. If that is possible, it can just by chance make a cell. And about the virtual impossibility of the life origin through the chance and random, one other states, average size protein molecule is composed of 288 amino acids, of which there are 12 different types. This can be arranged in 10 to the power of 300 different ways. This is an astronomically huge number, consisting of 1 followed by 300. Of these possible sequence, only 1 forms the desired protein molecules. The rest of them are amino acids chain that are either totally useless or else potentially harmful to the living things. This is really amazing that when you study the cell, how an RNA goes through the center of the nucleus and unzip it, they say, and transcribe, photocopies basically, copy a particular protein, and that's just a copy. It comes down, it goes to ribosomal RNA, which is the factory within the cell. He sees the message, he uses transfer RNA, which are like block raw material. He uses the tRNA and transfers them and makes that exact transcriptions of the things that the RNA brought, messenger RNA brought to the ribosomal RNA, and they make the protein. One sequence of it, if it's wrong, it becomes harmful and poisonous. It is so amazing that it's just too much of intelligence involved to say that there's no intelligence behind it. That is what they're saying. Another one writes, as a conclusion, it is definitely proven by the probabilities we have been examining so far that the source of life cannot be explained by chance. If we attempt to calculate the probability of an average size protein composed of 400 amino acids being selected only from left-handed amino acids, we come up with the probability of 1 out of 2 to the power of 400, that is 10 to the power of 120 Just for comparison, let's remember the number of electrons in the universe estimated to be 10 to the power of 79, and this probability of making this protein is 10 to the power of 120, which is much smaller than this number. So, and it continues, the supposed age of the earth is not sufficient to afford the formation of even a single protein by trial and error. By trial and error method, let alone a red blood cell. So, I'm going to conclude to say that, sure, the explanation in the Bible and Quran was old. Not incorrect, just old. It had to be redefined as what it meant. So Baha'u'llah came in Iran from God to explain, re-explain, regenerate the power of religion, power of the faith, divine revelations. And around the same time, 1860, there was the movement of materialism called Marxism and Darwin, which they tried to explain the theory of evolution. And not the Baha'is, but the Muslim and Christian vehemently told them that according to the fossil record, you guys are wrong. There is no theory. So, what are we going to do in between? So what is the way? Are we supposed, as the guy said, Harun Yahya, we have to say, okay, evolution is gone, there's no theory. Are we going to go back to read again the holy books of Quran and Bible and believe that God created the whole world in 6 days? That everything came, by some mighty hand, put things together? These explanations are absolutely outdated. So there has to be some other explanations. Something that's scientific, that makes sense. So far we know science has not been able to postulate a theory substantially be acceptable and followed and understandable and useful, in fact, to the mankind. And creationists, or the old people, or the old school of the religion, have been able to tell to the people that they're wrong, to the Darwinisms and to the other theories of evolution, but they themselves totally fail to bring up an alternative. To them, the alternative is what we say, which is the old school. Now, on the next topic, on the next session, I'm going to explain some of the misunderstanding of the Holy Book, how people misunderstand, including my favorite Stephen Hawking, who thinks the 6 days that's in the Bible refer to the Ice Age and whatnot. We are really seriously ignorant on some part, and this is what I think Baha'i faith can enlighten the mind by proposing, not as Mr. Harun Yahya says, my way or highway, but proposing a third way. There is a solution to this that I'm going to discuss it later. The next time, may God be with you. Till the next time.